Hello, dear viewer. Why did the chicken cross the road? Seriously, I'm not sure. Do you know? I posted a poll asking my viewers for the saddest song they've ever heard, and today I'm going to rank them on this tier list here, based on how sad they are. Be sure to become a member if you want to guarantee yourself a spot in these videos next time, and with that out of the way, let's get started. The dog 3320 said Nutshell by Alice in Chains. I can't help but feel worse once that first chord comes in. The vocals are gut-wrenching too. This might be the sad song. I think we all know how ridiculously touching this track is, to be honest. Hearing Lane Staley, a man just plagued with issues, both emotionally and drug-wise, it's haunting, it's heartbreaking. One of the most heartbreaking things I've ever heard in my life. The lyrics, while few, are some of the most impactful in music as a whole, I dare say. Words genuinely inscribed on my soul. One of the greatest songs ever recorded, performed by the greatest vocalist to ever live. Rest in peace, GOAT. This is Unbearable Agony. Razorblade Sky said Hurt by Nine Inch Nails. Another pretty free and easy answer right here. The haunting conclusion of one of the darkest records ever made in the Downward Spiral. Even in a vacuum, this song lyrically is just absolutely devastating. The penultimate track on the Downward Spiral ends with the main character taking his own life. This song serves as the closer and the character kind of looking back on his life, perhaps from the afterlife or perhaps from a hospital room surviving his attempt. Lyrically, the song just fucking crushes me, man. The man that felt like he was a burden his entire life, so much so that he went completely insane. The track's ending, however, is what may stick with me for my entire life. The lyrics read, "If I could start again, a million miles away, I would keep myself. I would find a way." A desperate plea for a do-over from a victim of his own wrath. Back of Unbearable Agony. Ninja Co. CH Motion Picture Soundtrack by Radiohead. The song didn't always do it for me, to be honest, dear viewer, and I know that might surprise you, being that I am John Radiohead himself, but it's true. This song is almost too sad for me. Instrumentally, it sounds like a funeral. It's an extremely beautiful track, lyrically touching. It feels like a farewell, a song of grief in my eyes. No matter the case, the song's devastating. But it's not my favorite of Radiohead's. It doesn't quite get me as good as those last two tracks, to be honest. I'm gonna go Tears in My Eyes. She's God 12. Street Spirit, Fade Out by Radiohead. The sadder Radiohead closer, if you ask me. I don't know if you asked. I can't actually hear you. You can only hear me. That's how this whole video thing works. I could try to explain it, but I think Tom York did a far better job than I could ever do in this interview here. He said, Street Spirit is our purest song, but I didn't write it. It wrote itself. We were just its messengers. Its core is a complete mystery to me. I would never try to write something that hopeless. All of our saddest songs have somewhere in them at least a glimmer of resolve. Street Spirit has no resolve. It's the dark tunnel without the light at the end. I detach my emotional radar from that song, or I couldn't play it. I'd crack. I'd break down on stage. That's why its lyrics are just a bunch of mini stories or visual images as opposed to a cohesive explanation of its meaning. It is images set to the music that I thought would convey the emotional entirety of the lyric and music working together. That's what's meant by all these things are one to swallow whole. I meant the emotional entirety. If I didn't have it in me to articulate the emotion, I'd crack. Our fans are braver than I to let that sing penetrate them, or maybe they don't even realize what they're listening to. They don't realize that Street Spirit is about staring the fucking devil right in the eyes and knowing no matter what the hell you do, he'll get the last laugh. The devil really will get the last laugh, in all cases without exception, and if I let myself think about that too long, I'd crack. While we play it towards the end of our sets, it drains me, it shakes me, and hurts like hell every time I play it. Looking out at thousands of people cheering and smiling, oblivious to the tragedy of its meaning. Like when you're going to have your dog put down and it's wagging its tail on the way there. That's what they all look like, and it breaks my heart. I wish that song hadn't picked us as its catalysts. And so I don't claim it. It asks too much. I didn't write that song. Back of Unbearable Agony. Zach Shark Attack 8681 with The Moon by the Microphones. It's absolutely crushing and depressing and very beautiful too in the chaos. I agree the Microphones are a band that have absolutely touched my heart many times, definitely through this song here, but I'm not sure that's touched my heart as closely as some other tracks we've already touched on so far. The narrative portrayed throughout the song is pretty incredible though. The distorted instrumentation only aids the crushing lyrics here. I feel like it portrays loss really well, but I'm only going to give this a sad. David Bombo's 1870, How to Disappear Completely by Radiohead. Can't even put in words how much that one song destroyed me by its mere presence. This might be the saddest song ever, to be honest. It tells a story incredibly personal to time, but one I feel many people can connect to. In my eyes, it's about an overwhelming sense of anxiety, perhaps fear. The narrator repeats in his head, "I'm not here, this isn't happening," in order to dissociate with the world around him. A song I was able to connect to when I was a bit younger, and it's a feeling I'm sure most people experience at some point in their life. It's scary either way, really, to disassociate with the world and completely disconnect, or to run into the belly of the beast. Instrumentally, I don't have much to say. It's just unfathomably beautiful. Top of Unbearable Agony. Albarno Aviation 1762 with Black by Pearl Jam. Need I say more? I don't want to talk about it. I guess that's the point of the video, though, huh? Good God, is this song devastating. In my eyes, it tells the story of either an unrequited love or a lost relationship. Kind of the coming to terms with reality, the reality in which the person you love the most didn't feel the same way. Final verse, of course, genuinely just agonizing to listen to. A scream out into the void. Why can't it be him? It'd bring most people to tears, I think, to be honest. I'm going behind Nutshell in unbearable agony. Ditzy with Basketball Shoes by Black Country New Road. Doing the song as Isaac Wood's departure from the industry makes the closing line of the song hit 10 times harder. Only he could make a song about a wet dream sound so sonically beautiful. You know, I never noticed he was singing about a wet dream. Guess I never really dove into the lyrics of this track that deeply. It's an incredibly touching track, absolutely. In the context of Isaac Wood's life, it's even more crushing, agreed. I can't say it hits me as hard as it seems to hit you, though. I'd probably lean more towards the place where he inserted the blade for a track like that on this record. As a closing piece of an already soul-crushing album, this track does do its job pretty well. I just don't think it's the biggest highlight of the record. I'm going back as sad. Tem Tem Timmy Daddy by Korn. The way he breaks down in song always gets me, and just at the end where it's pure silence is just raw in my opinion. A heartbreaking song in a completely different way than a lot of these so far. It doesn't necessarily make me feel sad myself, more so just devastation for the trauma that Jonathan Davis had to go through. It's a really hard song to listen to be honest. Of course, when he finally breaks down, the song becomes all the more heartbreaking. An incredibly powerful moment in music. I can't imagine how hard it must have been to leave that in the album's release, to put that into the world. Back of Tears in My Eyes. Abraham Rempe, Duck Koo Kim by Sun Kill Moon. A 14-minute tearjerker based on a Korean boxer who lost his life in a 14-round fight. The guitars are breathtaking and the vocals are haunting. There's no hope at the end of the tunnel in this song. It's so bleak and hopeless. It really is beautiful, even if it is so sad. In the top 75 songs on Rate Your Music, but I have it in my top 10 songs of all time. When I want my day to be sadder, I go to Duck Koo Kim. I think I listened to this on stream a week or two back, and it didn't really click with me for whatever reason. I enjoyed it far more this time, if enjoyed is the right word. It's a really powerful track. This track, on a dark night, a recipe for a depressing evening. The guitar, like you said, really powerful. Lyrically, while I found it slightly hard to follow at points, the vocals themselves are pretty unreal. I think the song probably could have been a minute or two shorter, but with the context of the 14-round fight, it makes sense to be 14 minutes long. This is a really touching track. I'm going back of Unbearable Agony. Love 404, Daughter by Pearl Jam, always fucks me up. Its depiction of abuse and trauma with Vedder's emotional vocal delivery has pushed me to tears more than once. I don't know. To be honest, this one never really did it for me. Lyrically, it's not something I can really connect to myself, but I can see the line, if that makes sense. Really touching lyrically, but I've never personally connected to these words. I've never really found these lyrics to hit me as hard as a song like Black has from this band. I understand the appeal, but I'm only going to go back of sad. Yak Rory, Stacy's Mom, Fountain of Wayne. This song is sad as fuck from Stacy's perspective. My best friend doesn't like me at all and is only hanging out with me because of my hot mom. You know, I see your point, but it's impossible to not wiggle your finger listening to this track. Perhaps even a stanky leg is in order on occasion. Not much sorrow goes through my mind throughout Stacy's Mom, to be honest with you. I'm going not sad, I'm afraid. Chris Thomas, 5007. Forget Her, Jeff Buckley. Always gets me in the feels. Really, almost any song off of Grace could be here. I think I might agree this song is the saddest. Devastating lyrically, Jeff Buckley's voice truly able to touch my heart like very few others in this world. This is sad shit right here. Really strong track in every way, to be honest. A near perfect track. Back of Unbearable Agony. Big C27, One More Light, Linkin Park. Beautiful message that couldn't reach the author himself, Rip Chester. It's a pretty great answer. I find Linkin Park typically doesn't hit me when they go for this softer style of music, but this one might be the exception. An incredibly heartbreaking song on its own 2 feet, of course, tackling Chester's own lifelong battle with depression, but it really does hit maybe 4 times as hard now that he's gone. A song that couldn't reach the own author is a beautiful way to put it. Behind Black, in Unbearable Agony. Trash to Teen, Earthworm, Grief. Genuinely the most crushing depiction of loneliness and self-hatred I've ever seen in music, sonically and lyrically. I don't think I get it. The lyrics are pretty crushing, but I was far too busy crashing my car into the highway divider to really let these lyrics sink in. The track maybe just a touch too heavy instrumentally to really kind of let the lyrics do their work. I like the song. I can only go back of sad. Austin Rogers, 6932. So You Want to Be a Superhero by Carissa's Weird. One of the most depressing songs I've ever heard. It genuinely has some of the most heartbreaking lyrics in any song. Really devastating track right here. I was unfamiliar with the artist, but fuck is this song dark. Lyrically, really dark, but the vocals here offer something I can't really put into words. Sorrow I've never really heard before, at least articulated in this way with this vocal style. Reminds me a bit of Hurt, lyrically, in its tackling of just kind of regret. Track almost anyone can connect to, I imagine. Instrumentally, did just enough without being overbearing. This is good shit. Behind Street Spirit, in the unbearable agony tier. Joachim Norberg, 3580, says Real Death by Mount Eerie. This whole album is a pit of despair and captures the gut-wrenching feeling of loss. Yeah, this whole album might be the most depressing of all time, I'd say. Death is luckily not something I've had an incredibly close experience with, minus a couple pets, which have crushed me for sure, but fuck, man. This song lyrically is just heartbreaking. I can't even comprehend the pain someone would have to go to write this song, and to release something so incredibly vulnerable. My god, that must have been hard. I'm going above Hurt in unbearable agony. Zachary Show, and All That Could Have Been, 9 Inch Nails. Very depressing and heartbreakingly beautiful. I've definitely cried to this song multiple times. Yeah, this one got me close to tears a couple times as well. Trent Reznor, one of the greatest lyricists of all time, I'd say. A bit more palatable than a track like Hurt, sonically, but lyrics equally as devastating, I'd say. It's a shame this released on a relatively forgotten compilation album, but this song is seriously, it's fantastic, and it's gut-wrenching. A really hard track to listen to. Self-destruction at its core. I'm going behind Real Death in the unbearable agony tier. Z Milch with Earth Mover by Have a Nice Life. Sounds and feels like ending it all. I don't think I have to say much here. Death Consciousness, perhaps the singular most devastating album ever written on all fronts. Probably the best song on the record, I'd say. As the concluding piece to this project, I can't imagine anything more profoundly just beautiful and heartbreaking. A song I genuinely struggle to listen to at times. Lyrically, perhaps not as on the nose as your Nutshells or your Hurts, but it's almost through the nuance of the lyricism my heart breaks even further. The explosion of the instruments halfway through the tracks, while it's not my favorite thing in the world in practice, seriously, maybe the most haunting conclusion of any album I've heard. Going behind Nutshell in unbearable agony. Down in a Hole says Frogs by Alice in Chains. In my opinion, more depressing than Nutshell. I've audibled your Frogs pick into the unplugged version of Frogs. I think that's what you're going for anyways. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't quite get this song up there with Nutshell, I don't think. I think the unplugged set being Lane's swan song aids your point. And the chorus is absolutely heartbreaking with the added context of his soon demise. But lyrically, I think it beats a little more around the bush than Nutshell does. This does absolutely make my day worse, but it's not a sadness I can really compare to almost any song I've ever heard, to be honest. Back of unbearable agony. Claus 2080 says Lazarus by Porcupine Tree. One of the few songs that has ever moved me to tears. Haunting lyrics and absolutely gorgeous music. I had no idea Porcupine Tree got down like this, to be honest. I was under the impression they were a metal-adjacent band. Vocally, this is pretty fantastic, I'd say. Instrumentally, pretty profound as well. Lyrically, I'm not quite as high on this track as you are, I don't think. I think this track could probably use a couple more listens from me. A bit more time to sit with the lyrics, perhaps. But on my first listen, I didn't connect with the lyrics as much as I think you did. I'm going back at Tears in My Eyes. Markiki 10 says Risk by Deftones. You can hear the pain in Shino's voice. I'm familiar with the context here, so let me break it down for you. It's a track about the late Chi Chang, the bassist for Deftones, who was in a coma during this record's release and would pass soon later. It's an incredibly heartfelt track from a man wishing to see his friend again. While this song certainly has all the necessary ingredients to make me sob violently, it just doesn't do it. I don't know why. It's certainly sad, but I think Deftones is hit closer to my heart on a couple other tracks, even a couple tracks off this same record. Going sad behind Pearl Jam. Lunalia, I Don't Love by Have a Nice Life. Straight up misery-inducing. Slightly less sad than Earth Mover, I'd say, but still an incredibly important piece in the misery-inducing puzzle that is Death Consciousness. Really heartbreaking lyrically, just kind of the point in the record where all hope is lost, if that didn't happen already for you. I don't really have much else to say, to be honest. I'm going above Frogs in unbearable agony. Oatseal Quo says Washer by Slint. From Brian McMahon's voice to the guitar solo towards the end, then it just lets you sit with everything for a good minute after. Heartbreaking stuff. Dear God, an extremely dense song, both lyrically and musically. Indescribably great song, and while I find it sad, I don't think I find it as sad as you seem to. This album as a whole, to be honest, I acknowledge the dark nature of the record, of course, but I find myself more in awe of the music I'm hearing than I find emotionally touched by the lyricism, I'd say. I'm gonna give this sad. Behind Basketball Shoes. Broker Dude says The Eternal by Joy Division, another really hard track to listen to. Within the context of the record, all the more heartbreaking. Within the context of Ian Curtis's story, double that already doubled heartbreak. Probably wouldn't be my pick from this record, but truthfully this entire record is one of the most haunting and tragic pieces of music ever created. Above Jeff Buckley, in the unbearable agony tier. Jonathan Lufkin, A4, Childishly Fresh Eyes, The Caretaker. I know a joke about the Snapple Bomb, but within the context of the Everything at the End of Time project, can you imagine clinging on to vivid and fading memories of such a beautiful life you've had? One that you are losing as you live and breathe? Not dying physically, but still losing the memories you spent a lifetime making. Makes me tear up every time I decide to put it on. I found this song almost creepy, to be honest. I haven't listened to the rest of the record, though I fear my time is nigh. But out of context of the rest of this album, I can't say this song in a vacuum really hit my heart here. Really profound and musically fantastic, and I imagine the context of the whole project aids it greatly. But I'm going sad behind Pearl Jam for now. Solomon McGuire says, Look on Down from the Bridge by Mazzy Star. Pretty great track, I think. My first time listening to this artist, and man, the vocals just absolutely incredible. Instrumentally, too, this is really great shit. Reminds me of Jeff Buckley, strangely. I don't know if that's a fair connection, but I do what I want. Pretty devastating lyrically, too. This is fantastic. I'm going behind Jeff Buckley in the Unbearable Agony tier. My Name is Beam says, Breaking in Two by Odette Quissad. The song completely broke me in several ways. Didn't do much for me, to be honest. I feel like I've heard this song 1,000 times, though it's definitely my first time listening to it. I mean to say, I don't think this song does anything incredibly fresh. Lyrically, it kind of just sounds like a standard breakup song, and I can't say it's one that's going to stick with me for very long personally. Really talented vocalist, though. I'm going behind Slint in the sad tier. Devin Hendricks says Sleep by My Chemical Romance. Its relevance within the context of the Black Parade about the patient essentially giving up on life, and Gerard's sleep paralysis in real life, and its additional weight relating to my own life, makes it a devastating listen for me. Pretty sad track here, I'd say. To be honest, the Black Parade has never gotten me as emotional as I've seen it get some other people. I find the story incredibly moving and beautiful, but nothing that necessarily brings me to tears. An inherently sad song lyrically, but no tissues required, I wouldn't say. I'm sorry to hear you can relate to this song, though. Behind Deftones, in the sad tier. Official Cool Master, It's Gonna Be Alright, Ween. Not really sad in a general sense, but something about it just makes me tear up at times. Gotta get some Ween in here? Come on. Not sure what you mean, though. It's not sad in a general sense. It's pretty sad in a general sense. It's a love song about letting go and the pain that caused him. It's not your typical breakup song per se, but it's not too far from it lyrically. Instrumentally, pretty fantastic, typical Ween. I think it heavily aids the tone of this track. One of my favorite tracks off the Mollusk, to be honest, but there's definitely a couple sadder Ween tracks, I'd also admit. I'm going Tears in My Eyes, behind Korn. That's all I have here. Thank you very much for watching, dear viewer. Be sure to subscribe and become a member if you want to be in the next video. I'd appreciate the support. I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.